Welcome to the Bold Lounge podcast. My name is Lee Burgess, and I will be your host. If you're anything like me, you love hearing inspiring stories of people who have gone on bold journeys and made a positive impact in the world. This podcast is all about those kinds of stories. Every week, we'll hear from someone who has taken a leap or embarked on an extraordinary journey. In addition to hearing their stories, we'll also learn about their bold growth mindset that they use to make things happen. Whether they faced challenges or doubts along the way, they persisted and ultimately achieved their goals. These impactful stories will leave you feeling motivated and inspired to pursue your own bold journey. I believe everyone has a bold story waiting to be freed. Tune in and get ready to be inspired. Welcome to the Bold Lounge. Today I have Joanna Lyall. She is the founder and CEO of the Better Menopause and a nutritional therapist. Welcome, Joanna.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
I thought we'd first start off just giving a little bit of background to your business and what is the Better Menopause and how did it come about?
So the Better Menopause is a nutrition and wellness company, and we've set up to empower women to have a better menopause and a better second half of their life. We're doing that by informing them on all of the amazing options there are out there actually to really look after your health, to enhance your health, and to feel better. My view is that no one should have to struggle through menopause. And we're doing everything we can to try and spread as much kind of positive, helpful information as we possibly can. And we're also producing a range of supplements to really help tackle some of the menopause symptoms naturally. Supplements that work on their own and also alongside HRT, if that's a route that you choose to go down.
Okay, great. So I'm excited to jump into that because I think a lot of our listeners will be interested in hearing that, from perspective where they are in their life or where they're coming into. You hear a lot of negative about it. So I'd love to jump into that. And also, I think there's a lot of ageism also as well with some of the things that I see just in publications and ads for it. But let's get down to some boldness. Let's start with, what is your definition of bold? Obviously, being a founder and a CEO, you have definitely as part of your gene. So would love to understand what your definition is.
I think being bold is being brave, feeling a bit uncomfortable, having that kind of excitement that makes your heart beat that little bit faster and that little voice in your head say, are you sure this is the right thing to do?
Yeah. So, and then what you do from there is, even though you've heard that voice, you still take action, correct?
Exactly. And just that little voice, that tiny doubt that just makes you think, oh, am I just stepping into something that I haven't done before? Is there a little bit of fear there? And if so, that makes me feel kind of braver and bolder.
Right. Yeah. Definitely, I think one of the things that you're pointing out that I think people should understand is that when you're bold, it doesn't mean you're fearless. People may be fearless. I don't know. I'm not one of those people.
Yeah.
Fear is a real natural human emotion to have, and it's actually to protect you, right? But there's sometimes you have to actually be in control of your mind and what you're doing and how you're going to move through this world.
Yeah.
So kind of stepping into that. So when was the first time, based on your definition, you remember hearing that little voice, but taking the action anyway?
I think my first memory of feeling really bold was when I decided to leave my girls' grammar school at 16 and go to college. And I then didn't follow that kind of typical path of A-levels. I wanted to study at the time film production and media. And it was just a calling for me that I really wanted to do. So I had to convince my parents and just step out and see what would happen on this fairly unchosen path, I think.
Yeah.
When I kind of really looked at what I'd been inspired by so far in school, I'd always enjoyed kind of maths and science. And I went through kind of different iterations of wanting to be a doctor, maybe a physiotherapist, something in that space. And it's quite interesting that now I'm a nutritionist kind of many, many years later, but I had that kind of calling then to want to do something that was going to make an impact on how people felt. But I also had this quite creative part of me, I think. And I'm not an artist in I'm going to draw amazing pictures or be an incredible painter or do anything creative in that way. But what I loved about media and film production is that it had that creative element to it. And I really love producing things that are tangible. I've always had a learning style that is about doing. and learning through that doing rather than the theory and the study. I don't like poring over books endlessly. I'm not the person that's going to sit up late into the night, with the lamp on, drinking coffee, studying. That just wasn't me. And the idea of being able to take a slightly different path at that point in my life and go into an environment where the practical was a really big part of it. So the fact that you were producing a TV show every week, you're producing radio shows alongside the theory and the kind of the science, I guess, and the art behind production, just really inspired me. And it just shown me a kind of totally different career path that was out there that I had no idea that maybe I could go into.
Yeah. So now you're the CEO and founder of your company.
Yeah.
But along the way, what were some of the steps it took to get there? So you're a nutritionist. Did you start out with that in mind when you got out of high school? Like what did that look like? What's your path to where you are now?
Yeah. So when I finished studying, I carried on the path of media. So I sort of tested out the field of TV production, and I was a runner on a TV show for a little bit. And I thought, it's a long way up. It's a long way to get to that kind of ambition of being a director or a producer.
Because it has a lockstep, right?
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah, it's kind of like the world of publishing all the way.
Exactly. You've got to earn your stripes, and you do everywhere, but it's a particular industry there, I think, where it's really about opportunity and chance in some ways, as well as talent. But I'd also been exposed to the world of media and advertising. Again, not something that you kind of get taught about at school, but once I started to look at it, I thought, this is really interesting. So I took a role in 98 as a digital analyst in a media agency. And this was the time when the dot-com boom was really just starting, and very little was known about internet advertising and the opportunity there. And that really attracted me. I like being part of things that are new and different and evolving. And I was able to really get kind of a lot of specialism and experience quite quickly in a sector that not many people knew a lot about, which gave me career opportunity. And I ended up spending 20 years at that same company, and I worked my way up to managing director there before, after 20 years, I decided, actually, you know what, I need to do something else now. And I guess that was my next bold move. I decided to say goodbye to that amazing agency, great career, and go to a startup. And I did that because I had that kind of yearning inside me to create something, I think. And I just thought, I'm not going to play it safe anymore. Like, what's the worst that could happen? And I had an opportunity to go to a startup and be the first UK employee and build that business. So that was my kind of next big bold move. And then, I carried on in that business, worked through COVID, which was a very particular time of life from a work perspective. Went to another agency, all kind of specializing in digital marketing and high growth and performance media. But at the same time, I had this desire to check back in with the nutrition work that I'd started back in 2003. So whilst I was working at the media agency, I was looking up in the company and looking at who are the women that I would want to aspire to be, and where are the women that I'd want to aspire to be? And they weren't there. There were very few of them, but they also weren't role models that appealed to me and showed me that this was a career that I wanted to stay in. And I had this real kind of passion and interest in complementary health, natural health. And I'd always continued my studies since I'd left school. So I trained as a massage therapist, a Reiki practitioner, and none of them had quite kind of fitted the bill. They weren't maybe intellectual enough for me as well. I enjoyed that kind of physical connection, but I wanted something that was more mentally stimulating. So I found nutrition. And I studied nutrition alongside my full-time job. I did it at the weekends over a 3-year diploma. And then when I came out the other side of that, something interesting had happened with the way I thought about work. And because I suddenly had this balance in my life of it not being just about work every day, I had this other really big, important thing, which was this world of nutrition and this new qualification and a new identity for myself as well. It actually made me start to enjoy my day job more. So I ran both side by side for many years. I started a local nutrition practice at the time because you didn't really see clients online back then. It was just seeing clients in person. So I worked a local clinic, and I really focused in female health, hormones, fertility. They were the kind of the big topics that I was getting stuck into. And then as the years went on, and I had children myself as well, obviously my time was much tighter, running an agency at the time, bringing up small children, but still sort of nurturing this kind of passion and interest in nutrition more for myself, my friends, my family, and doing my CPD every year. So keeping up my studies. And when I left my last business at the beginning of this year, I really wanted to do something with that nutrition. I wanted it to be front and center of my day to day. I wanted it to be my career rather than something I kind of kept just for myself and in the background. So that's really where the beginnings of, for me, the Better Menopause was born.
So a lot in there that I just want to touch
Yes.
a few things. You had a few bold moments in there just with what you shared. So one was you were doing your day job. At some point, they merge, maybe our day job and our passion that we do or our hobby that we do. At one point in our life, they merge. And I think that's happened for me since I was 48. But until then, I was doing things outside, never thinking I would be where I am now, but just knowing that I want to keep learning. I want to keep experimenting. And you were doing a full diploma on the side. So I understand that as well. I'm finishing my dissertation and it's like a second job.
Yeah. No, it was. Yeah.
And then on top of that, after you got your diploma, like actually started doing work and working in the clinic. But there was an important point you said in there, which was it actually made me enjoy my day job more because I felt more balanced or aligned, right? It wasn't as if you were putting your passion or your curiosities to the side and say, someday, which we do a lot.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to try it now. It took effort, right? You had to say, I'm going to do the work. I'm going to get the diploma and then I'm going to go into the clinic. Maybe when I could have been, going to the park or going to dinner or whatever it may be, you're doing the work. So I think there is also the boldness in the action of like, I'm going to actually do the work because that's what it takes. I think sometimes people wish or think someday, but they're not able to like move the needle for themselves. What made you what was inside of you that was like, I'm going to put in the effort?
I think I'm a naturally very motivated person. If I want to do something, I will put everything into it. And I don't need somebody else to push me along. I can motivate myself on a daily basis sometimes if that's what's needed to make things happen. And I'm also a curious and interested person in why things work. I've always enjoyed that kind of science side of life, and studying nutrition really, really tapped into that. And it didn't feel like work. And there's that saying, isn't there, that if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. So I think there's that aspect to it as well.
So you've had that merge, right? Of your passion, curiosity, the what if I could, when, someday. You've had that merge right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And even back then, I remember thinking, I want to run my own business. But at the time where I was in my other career, in the marketing and advertising career, I was doing really well. And it's a relatively lucrative industry to be in. And it was a really hard kind of playoff to think, well, do I step aside from all of that and just go for it with nutrition, which at the time was still a really quite an emerging sector. It's even like 20 years later now, so many more people will talk about nutrition, having a nutritionist, working with kind of natural and complementary health. Back then you'd be lucky if you had one health food store in your town or village, and it was pretty dusty and rusty, and there wasn't that kind of variety of amazing foods and supplements that we can kind of buy today. So I just didn't see it as a legitimate career opportunity for me at the time. So I kept it as this passion. And I guess I did make compromises. I was in my 20s. So when I was studying at the weekend, I wasn't going out, which probably has like health benefits for me now. But, at the time, it didn't feel like a huge sacrifice.
It didn't feel like a compromise, right? We use that word now, but I mean, it's just like hindsight of, I didn't do this because I was doing that.
Exactly.
But you look at it like that when you're doing the work that you love or that you're aligned with. And I think that's something I want the listeners to hear is when you're doing the work that you want to be doing that is aligned with who you are and your passion and purpose, it just does not feel like a compromise 99% of the time.
Yes.
Yeah, you'll get tired on some days and you'll be some days like, why am I doing this? So man, it would be so easier if, but I never like I would go back, right?
No.
I wouldn't change it.
No.
So let's pivot to menopause. Let's just start off with what's the connection between nutrition and menopause?
Right. So probably best to start with menopause and gut health. You can kind of build the nutrition on top of that. So there's a really strong connection between your hormones and your gut health. Your gut is responsible for metabolizing and processing all of your hormones. And if your gut isn't working properly, then you're not going to be able to do that well, which can lead to many of the symptoms that women will experience at this stage of life. So by correcting that microbiome and correcting that balance inside your gut, you can completely alleviate actually almost all of those symptoms. And then layering on top of that a really good diet that then feeds your microbiome and nourishes your gut every day and gives you the nutrients that you really need at this time of life to balance hormones, to improve sleep, to increase energy, to look after your skin and your hair and all the things that start to change at this point in life. It can be a really powerful tool. And it's a tool that everybody can access every day because you have to feed yourself. So you can make good choices every day through your diet to really improve your everyday well-being and health.
So share with me some of the, just for people that may not know or are coming into it or haven't had it or experience it. What are some of the symptoms of menopause that one would expect or should expect are possible? And again, I'm assuming I've not had it yet. But I'm assuming everyone's experience with it is different, but the same in some way.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same in that it's the same process of hormone change that's going on inside our bodies. So our estrogen is declining and our progesterone is declining and our testosterone are declining. And they all do different things in our bodies and have a different impact on how we feel every day. And there's this term, the perimenopause, that no one was really talking about that five years ago even. And it was almost a bit of a secret that actually, well, hey, we've all heard that there's the menopause and at that point, that's when your periods stop. But did you know that there's a period of maybe 7 to 10 years before that where you're going to start to feel the effects of that fluctuating estrogen and the reduction in progesterone? And it's definitely not taught at school. I think the awareness for women of this is the change that you're going to start to expect is really low. And it's something that we really want to try and change actually at the Better Menopause as well, just to get that education out there. So the list of symptoms, I mean, it's pretty long. I think there are sort of 48 plus symptoms that are recognized now.
Yeah. Well, the top ones, obviously, I think, I hear a lot about, or I can't lose weight.
Yes.
That's the biggest one I hear about. I mean,
yes, it's a huge one.
I can't sleep as well and I have hot flashes. Those are the ones that are either in the news or I hear a lot about.
Yeah.
And all of those ones are connected. And I'm not saying those are the top 3, but that seems to be the ones that come out.
I think hot flashes is the famous one, right? If you ask somebody of not menopausal age, what's a symptom associated with menopause, they're probably going to say hot flashes because it's the one that everybody knows. But actually, a symptom like anxiety is huge, and for many women, they don't realize that actually that is connected to what's going on with their hormones, and it can often be one of the first signs of that perimenopause change. That you suddenly go from feeling like yourself every day to waking up feeling anxious. And that's what happened to me. Okay. And at the time, I was in a really stressful job, high pressure, big expectations of myself and expectations around me as well. And I just suddenly had this feeling of anxiety that I'd never experienced before. I know I wouldn't describe myself as being an anxious person, but yet it was then leaking into my sleep. So my sleep was being disrupted. And again, I haven't had sleep problems before. And then I kind of coupled that with some other common symptoms like achy joints and energy just being lower. And it's a hard thing to describe until you feel it. But many women will say, I just don't feel like myself. Mm-hmm. And then you lose that motivation to exercise, or you lose the motivation to do things that you would usually love. Mm-hmm. They are all signs that I think should make you just think, actually, is there something else going on inside me? Is it this hormone change that's driving all of these feelings? Because what's happening with our hormones affects our brain, which affects our gut, and it's all connected.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, like when you're in your 40s, mid 40s to your mid 50s, that sounds like the time of you could be in perimenopause, right?
Yeah.
But those are also the times that you're probably in the highest level of your role. You've worked really hard
Yes.
to get to where you are. And then
Yeah.
stuff starts to happen that you may not think about. The one I that resonated with me as you were talking was like, I just don't feel like myself. Like
Yeah.
very upbeat, energetic, really gregarious person. Like I really enjoy talking to people, but every now and then, and I'll just say now, I'll be like, man, I just don't feel the same energy that I should. It's just more so like, how do I don't know if I can fix it, or like I didn't even know there's anything to address. So tell me how, with regard to, you talked about supplements, and obviously people do hormone therapy as well, but the idea of supplements seems like a gentler way to enter. Can I kind of figure this out? And obviously working with a professional like a nutritionist
Yeah.
is advised. If someone wanted to like start figuring out, can I help my symptoms that I'm having by basically improving my gut health or understanding my current gut health, where do they start?
Good question. So certainly in the UK, many women won't have any kind of annual checkup. So
Oh,
they're
really?
not
Okay.
having that kind of opportunity. Yeah, it just isn't a thing. Which is probably why many women then go undiagnosed, let's say, of being in perimenopause, and they put their symptoms down to other things. So the stress of life, the pressure of the job, like you said before, about being in that kind of peak of your career. Like this really should be the time that we are like, go, go, go. Let's really manifest all those kind of benefits of our experience and be great leaders and be great bosses and all of that. But if you're not feeling great inside, that's a really, really tough thing to do. So I think for anyone, the first step is education. So understand what is happening in your body and why. And when you start to understand what the hormones do and why you're feeling the way you feel, it's quite empowering, because you then know, okay, this is not my fault. I haven't got a disease. I'm not unwell. I'm experiencing a change that's supposed to happen in my body, right? We are supposed to go through menopause. But now there's so much science that shows the role of the gut in hormone balance. And there's a particular group of bacteria in the gut called the estrobolome that are responsible for metabolizing and modulating estrogen levels. So they can both help reduce the estrogen through that excretion process, but they can also help create more from inactive estrogen. So if we need more, they can help modulate that. And what the science has shown is that when you start to go through perimenopause, the fluctuating estrogen levels play havoc with your microbiome. So they are the hormones directly in communication with your microbiome. When you've got estrogen going up and down, this can cause real fluctuations in the health of your overall microbiome, which then has a knock-on effect to how you then metabolize and process hormones, your digestion, your absorption, which might mean that you're not absorbing enough of the essential nutrients that you really need, like B vitamins and magnesium, which are so essential for everybody, but really important at this time of life as well. And if everything's working a little bit below par, it's no wonder that you're then not going to feel your best. So this is why we created the Better Gut as our flagship product. So it's a probiotic that's been specifically designed for this phase of life. It's got 6 different bacteria in there that have all got scientific efficacy for improving symptoms. And so each bacteria is linked to, it could be improving anxiety or improving sleep or improving weight management or skin health or vaginal health or UTIs, or and the list is very long. But it was important to us that we created a product that did have that science there, so that anyone can choose to take it themselves. They don't need to go and see a nutritionist to say, yes, you're allowed to take this. This product is safe for anyone to take. And in most cases, there are going to be a few exceptions. And if you're one of those exceptions, you're going to know, because you're probably very unwell or you're in an immunocompromised situation. But for everybody else, it's a safe product to take. And it's also safe to take if you are on cancer drugs as well, which is another really important group of women that are pushed into menopause due to their treatment or due to medical intervention, like a hysterectomy, for example. And they might not be able to take HRT. It might not be available to them due to health risks. So having those natural options available that can then be supported with a great diet and other supplements as well is really powerful and empowering, I hope, well, for those women.
For sure. So I think, from the perspective of learning about your microbiome and understanding it, I do advise that you talk to a nutritionist and not just go grab stuff off the shelf.
Yeah.
I think the microbiome in our bodies is something that it is its own science experiment. And when it gets off, it needs some help in some places, or, you sometimes worry about upsetting the balance of it if you change things. But definitely, I think one of the people that should be entering our lives somewhere in our 40s should be a nutritionist.
Yeah.
It isn't a bad thing to try that out, to have that consult, to see what they say, to do some testing, because our bodies change, we change. One of the things, I've heard come up a bunch too is like intolerances to certain foods at this point, like gluten and things like that they didn't have an issue with, but now they're having an issue with in their 40s and 50s. Is that related potentially to?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the symptoms connected with that the estrobolome being out of balance is recurrent IBS. So it might have been something that you'd experienced in your younger years and it had gone away, and you were feeling absolutely fine digestively, and then suddenly it comes back. And women are left wondering, why is that? And it really is connected to that gut hormone axis, so the communication between your hormones and your gut. And now you mentioned testing. I think the functional testing that we can offer as nutritionists is an amazing insight to what's going on inside our bodies. And if you want to, you can look at everything. You can look at your genetic profile to look at, okay, well, left to its own devices, how naturally would my body deal with hormones? How would it deal with like digestion and metabolism and methylation, which is that kind of breakdown and removal from the body? And then on top of that, you can then look at your microbiome through stool testing. So you can find out so much about what is going on in your body today. And again, like for the right person, that information is really empowering and useful. And not everybody will want to go out and do those tests.
I'm very intrigued. I'm very intrigued because I've never used a nutritionist. I've used integrative medicine throughout my life, probably in my 30s and 40s, acupuncture, meditation, cupping, those type of things are things I've explored.
Yeah.
But I mean, those are more physical, tactile things that you can do, but had great results with those things. But I think, I'm very, very intrigued, especially since I've been like, oh, I'm not even affected by it. Little me, like thinking nothing's happening to me when actually like some of these things may be connected, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes, it's just a tough day. It's just a moment. It's just that's what I should expect. When actually maybe I'm not giving myself a break and like realizing that it could be something deeper, right? Because I think as women, a lot of us are just like, keep going, ignore it, don't stop, you don't have time, just get it done. And I think, for me, that's probably what I've done. But like I said, some of the things you talked about, I guess because I wasn't having this major thing, like there's so much. And sometimes I do think it is hype in the media and online, or something about the change. It is a natural thing that is happening, that there are many ways that we can learn more about it. And your company is helping us with understanding, here's one way. What I love about the unique perspective you and your company are bringing is just start like with our base, which is our gut, which affects everything. So I think, we sometimes in healthcare go to the fix versus the actual, root. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I really would. And I would just say to anyone to be very, very wary of products that claim to fix one thing specifically. So this supplement will make you lose weight. It won't, in all likelihood. And even if it does, it probably won't be permanent. It won't last, right? And when you understand the reason why we gain weight during this phase of life, it makes you realize that actually it's so much more than just taking one pill. It's not going to fix it on its own.
Let's talk about that for a little bit, because that is the number one thing that I've heard people talk about. I've experienced it, but I really just thought it was, again, my stress. When I lost weight in my 40s, it was very, not easy, but it's much, much easier. And now I need to get some of my habits and intention and discipline aligned, because I would say they've got out of alignment in the middle of this year. Really good at the beginning, really not so good in the middle, and kind of getting back on track now as I finish out 23. So I launch into 24. But I think one of the things is what happens with menopause and our ability to lose weight or to stay a healthy weight.
Yeah. So it's has a lot to do with estrogen and that declining estrogen or fluctuating estrogen initially, and then another hormone, insulin. So very often in this phase of life, our body can become more sensitive to sugar and more resistant to insulin. And when our body is resistant to insulin, it stops hearing the messages of take the sugar and put it in the cell to burn for energy. And what instead happens is that sugar then gets stored as fat. Our body sends out a different signal that says, store that energy as fat, I will use it later.
Their body like confused at that point?
It is. So estrogen plays a role in helping with that communication. It works with insulin and the sugar to tell the body to move the sugar into the cell. So inside our brain, estrogen is playing a role in telling sugar effectively to get inside the brain cell and create the energy that we need in the cell in order to do all of our thinking and make good decisions every day and all of the functions. And when that communication breaks down because of estrogen not being there to help with that kind of smooth path, that then starts to create these feelings of anxiety and also cravings, because the brain says, I need fuel, which sends a signal to the gut that says, I need sugar now. And that's when we go, okay, well, what I'll do then is have a cake, because that's going to make me kind of or a biscuit or a chocolate bar, whatever that kind of vice might be. So actually, those types of craving messages are really hard to resist, because it is a kind of chemical reaction that is going on inside our body that is being made worse by the fact that our bodies are more resistant to insulin. And what we see in women from midlife on is higher risk of metabolic disease, whether that's kind of diabetes or metabolic cancers. We see higher risk of heart disease. We see higher risk of brain degenerative diseases as well. And that is all connected to what has happened with hormones in our body, because estrogen plays this important role in communication and protection of our organs as well. So it's a real challenge. The other side of it as well is that if we've got excess estrogen in our system, which we can have because we're not breaking it down properly and excreting it, that can also cause weight gain. So that kind of presence of estrogen is really getting our body to store again more sugar as fat. Mm-hmm. So it's working against us in kind of both ways.
Yeah. So your body's giving you the message, you're doing what you always did. You know, maybe in your 40s, like, I'm going to have a Dove chocolate, or I'm going to kind of do my thing, and that's going to give me the energy. But it actually, you're intaking it. It's not giving you energy. Your brain's like, give me more. I need energy. And you're like, I'm giving it to you, but okay, I'll have a second piece or a third piece, or I'll drink a Coke or whatever it may be.
Exactly.
All of that's for naught. Meaning that it's what you used to do that worked, and now because of the change in estrogen, it's not working. So people who are listening to hear like, because I've heard it, what I used to do doesn't work anymore. And again, everyone's journey is their own. So there's no judgment about what you do or how you do it. I think what's important and what you're really stressing is like, be educated as to the mechanism for what is happening, right? So that it's not just a one drug going to fix it all type of moment, because it may fix it for a moment, but it's not going to fix it sustainably and maybe even healthily, if that's even a word, or in a healthy manner for your future. Yeah. So if someone's trying to figure out kind of where to start, where do they start?
Yeah. Well, I mean, in an ideal world, you go and see a nutritionist and you kind of have that health check that you were talking about. Why not do that with a nutritional practitioner?
Yeah. Are there online things that people can do? Like, and even obviously the testing you can't do online, but like, could you do like a virtual consultation?
Absolutely. Like many nutritionists offer those virtual clinics now. So it's really accessible for anyone. Obviously that there's a cost. So I appreciate that, that might be a barrier, but you don't have to live in a certain place in order to see a nutritionist. So you could do that. I think, for anyone else, for anyone that wants to kind of get started today on a change, is recognizing that what worked for you in your 20s and 30s probably won't work for you in your 40s and 50s, because of the way our body and our metabolism is working differently. And there are different things that you can try. So for some people, intermittent fasting makes a huge difference. And what that does is it really gives our body a chance to not be fueling on sugar. It has to go into that fat fueling mode in order for us to create energy in a different way. And I'm not talking about, 24-hour, 36-hour
like
fast
12,
or anything
16, 18.
Exactly. It could be 12, right?
Yeah, you probably do it naturally already. That's one of the things that's actually was working really well for me before I kind of got off my habit trail was the intermittent fasting. I started with 12, which was really just meaning I stop eating by 7 and I don't eat at 7 p.m. I don't eat until 7 a.m. That's 12 hours, folks. So
Yeah.
I'm already doing it. But I think when people hear intermittent fasting, they think, oh my gosh, I can't eat for days or something like that. So I just wanted to insert the 12 hours probably someone's already doing.
It's a 12-hour minimum because that is the amount of time really that your body needs and your digestive system needs in order to shut down from digestion and go into repair. And when your body goes into repair, you heal faster, your immunity's better, your energy's better, you're not in that high sugar state. So generally you're creating a healthier internal environment. And if you want to try 13, 14, 16 hours, try that and see what works for you. And it has a lot to do with our genes actually on how many hours will work best for you versus how many hours will work best for me.
Yeah.
So playing around with that and trying to test it for yourself is quite important.
The other thing is fasting for women is different than fasting for men because of our estrogen, correct?
It is, yeah. And it's different for menstruating women versus non-menstruating women as well. So there are some great resources out there. There are some great books. Fast Like a Girl is one of them that just really helps you. Again, like if you want to understand the science of it, like before you launch into anything that is sort of fundamentally changing the way you live, I would always recommend you just do a bit of reading or a bit of listening, like educate yourself so you know why you're doing it. Don't just do it because it feels like a trend or everyone else is doing it. Why am I doing this and how is this going to help me? Because then you get the motivation and the commitment. The biggest issue with that, I guess, a nutritionist would have is that long-term commitment from the client. Because you can't do it to them. You're not going to give them a pill that's going to magically heal them. You're not doing kind of body work that they're going to walk away feeling renewed and refreshed. You're giving them education, information, and a plan. And that plan has to then be fulfilled by themselves. You need to be sort of motivated to make that happen.
Committed, right? Committed to yourself, to your health.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I think if I take my experience with my clients over the last year, many of them had health goals that they were committed to.
Right.
And when we get to this part of the year, kind of doing a check-in of like, how is it? How's it going? How are all the goals that you had? They had a health goal, basically a wellness goal. They had a strategic goal, and they had a mindset goal. So each of them had one of the one that went back burner the quickest and that has stayed there is their wellness goal.
Right.
And I don't know if that's just, I don't know, outcome of how women, and it happens to men too. So I'm not trying to say it doesn't happen to both, but we back burner our wellness and our health for some reason, but we perform, we achieve, we excel, but at the cost of sometimes our wellness.
Yeah, absolutely. And that stumbles across another really important point, that one of the reasons women run into lower resilience to stress and anxiety during this phase of life is because our bodies become really tired of that constant cortisol drive. And it's that cortisol drive that's allowing you to kind of push without looking after your kind of health and well-being in the background. Mm-hmm. And that also is then connected to what's happening with our insulin and sugar metabolism and that increase of weight. So you will see a pattern with many women where they have been in kind of high stress, high pressure roles and careers, and then they aren't sleeping as well. The anxiety starts to creep up, the weight starts to creep on, and they don't know why. And they've been able to push like that throughout their 30s, throughout their early 40s maybe, but then something changes and the body says, nope, that's not happening anymore. Yeah. You need to listen to me. So everyone can listen to themselves. Everyone can take a moment to, even without seeing a professional, they can ask themselves, how am I feeling?
Yeah.
Am I at my best? Am I at my optimal? Am I fueling my body in the way that I need to in order to feel really good?
Yeah. Sometimes I think, and I'm guilty of it, is like, I just want the instant fix.
Yes.
Let me lose 60 pounds in 3 months.
Yes. Yeah.
It just doesn't work that way now.
No, it
It just
doesn't. It
doesn't.
doesn't.
So, and it doesn't stay off, even if you could do something that drastic, it wouldn't be
Exactly.
sustainable. So
Yeah.
I think an important fact, going back to kind of once the nutritionist says, try intermittent fasting, for example, or maybe try intermittent fasting with these supplements, it's a commitment from you to yourself.
Yeah.
And I think people listening need to understand, like, and ask the question, are you ready to commit to yourself and to your health? Because what's going to help you for the next
Absolutely.
move forward, which the things that you outline could happen if you keep back burning. There is a point where your body says, I can't come back. I can't keep going, right?
And what might be sustainable for me, be sustainable for you is going to be really different as well. So
Yeah.
there's no point in embarking on something
Yeah.
that you're not going to commit to because for whatever reason it doesn't suit you. And we are like a generation of women that have been through all sorts of diets and yo-yo dieting, and we've tried all sorts of things, right? Extremes and fads and deficits and all of that.
Yeah. I think my mom has done them all. Yeah, I think my mom could list them all.
Exactly, they don't work, right?
And I've probably done half of the ones she's done, because obviously we're related and I have some of the genes that she has that
Yeah.
my mom had, etc. So
Yeah.
and it's hard to fight against heredity. So I think people needing to understand that they don't have to fight it. They can figure out how to work with it, can commit to themselves, and they could, do some of the things that your company does, the supplements, and see if that's an option. Or they can really just, there's a whole host of things, but if you're thinking that something's an instant fix, it most likely can help you maybe minimally, but it won't be long standing.
No, exactly.
One of the things you said that I want to end with is what I see women do is give each other advice. Like, this is what I did. This is what I'm taking. This is how I did it. Like maybe we have the same goal to get to a healthy weight. But what works for you isn't going to work for me, isn't going to work for them. So I think I always just want people to realize, like, I know they're trying to help, but like, I think what we should help people do is understand, do you understand the why of what's happening for you? Like, and that's where I think education, understanding what the options are, talking with a nutritionist, even if it's just a virtual online connect, just ask questions and to educate yourself or to kind of read. And I think going to your website is a great place to start. And so all the information about that is below in the episode notes. But I think when you think someone's kind of coming into the first part of this, what would be your advice for someone who is just starting to feel a little off, or something's happened that never happened before? What's the first advice you would give them as they come into menopause?
Well, I would say you should speak to your GP. So you should check in with them. The challenge is not every GP will be well enough educated on menopause. So it is a little bit of luck of the draw. You also have the option to go and see a private GP with a menopause specialist. And there are many of them around now all over the country that have done that extra training with kind of menopause treatments. And they will have a much more informed conversation with you around what's going on with your hormones. They'll test, they'll look at the hormone levels, they'll take the full picture of what's happening with all your symptoms and help you put all of that together. But then for somebody that isn't at that stage of feeling like they want to speak to the doctor just yet, or go down that kind of medicalized route, just making the changes to your diet as early as possible that allow you to have better metabolic health will see you in much better stead throughout the menopause. So that is going to be about really looking at the sugars that you're consuming, ideally cutting out snacks, including protein, fiber, essential fats in every meal, really paying a lot of attention to that. If you fuel yourself well at each meal, you won't have those sugar cravings, and then you won't be reaching for the things that are going to make you feel worse in the end. So really getting on top of how you're eating and what you're putting in your body is the kind of first port of call, I think, for anyone. And you can choose to do that through having meals delivered to your home, to seeing a nutritionist, to reading a book, to taking recipes online. We share some recipes and ideas as well on our Instagram, and so do many other kind of brilliant practitioners. So there's a lot of free information out there that anyone can access.
Well, it's excellent advice, and thank you so much for being on the Bold Lounge. Please check out all the information about Joanna, her company, the Better Menopause, and all that you can learn. Thank you so much, Joanna.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to the Bold Lounge podcast. Through the continuum of bold stories, vulnerability to taking a leap, you will meet more extraordinary people making a positive impact for others through their unique and important story. By highlighting these stories, we hope to inspire others and share the journey of those with a bold mindset. We hope you've enjoyed this podcast and look forward to sharing the next bold journey with you.